Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Authentic Audience podcast. I am back in San Francisco today. I don't feel like I've been home in months, I think because I haven't. So it feels good to be home, back in the office. Not that I haven't been working, but I have been playing a lot. I have found a new level of balance in my life. I think a big part of that has to do with this detox. My husband and I have shared a little bit about it on social media. We've been working with a nutritionist, and for the last 2 weeks have had no alcohol, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, and what I was saying at the beginning, no fun. But it's been just the opposite of that. It's been a really beautiful 2 weeks since the last podcast recording is basically when we started this. And I am waking up so clear, so happy. It's affected my serotonin levels. It's affected my health, how my gut feels. It's been pretty incredible, I can say honestly. I don't think I've gone 10 days without drinking since I was maybe 17, 18. And I would like to say that it has not had a major effect, but the last 2 weeks, yeah, it's real. It's definitely real. So I feel in a really good place, and I was really excited to talk to my guest today, Biet Simkin. It's funny how these guests always drop in at the perfect time in my life, and I was truly blown away by this episode, by this conversation. I bow down to this woman. She's something else. She just released her first book called Don't Just Sit There. She's a meditation teacher, an artist, a spiritual leader. She's a powerful, powerful human being who has absolutely found her calling and has created abundance and success in her life these last 5 years. And it was so refreshing to hear her take on everything, to hear her take on her valuing herself, her pricing, her worth, how she's grown her business so fast and so steadily, the journey. She has an amazing story, an incredible story. If you haven't heard it, I definitely suggest doing some more research on her. We don't get too deep into it on this episode. We talk about business a lot. We talk about her book a lot: growth, spirituality, consciousness, authenticity, inauthenticity, all of the things. I am so grateful to know her. I'm so grateful to have met her for the first time today. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this talk. It was just profound. The plans and visions she has for her future are extraordinary, and I can't wait to see her reach them and then some. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Biet Simkin is an artist and spiritual teacher. She is the founder of the Center of the Cyclone, an immersive meditation experience, and co-founder of Club Soda, an event series exploring sobriety. She's been featured in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Elle, and just released her new book, Don't Just Sit There, 44 Insights to Get Your Meditation Practice Off the Cushion and Into the Real World. In a world full of spiritual businesses and teachers, Biet stood out to me the moment I discovered her, and I am so excited to have her with me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be together. I love this.
I love it too. So I just want to jump in and start by saying, how are you? How are you feeling? Where are you? Tell me everything.
I'm good. I'm in Montauk, which is basically like, I think that if they ever created heaven, if we were like pods and we just could create like the perfect place to be for the rest of your life, this would be it. Like, it literally feels, also, like, I'm a city girl. Like, I'm born and raised in New York City. So I think I get my fill of like the rubbing elbows with like every single ethnicity and every single age group at all times while like rats run by like during the year. So all being here all summer is quite extraordinary. So that's where we are right now in Montauk.
That's beautiful. We just got back from Santa Cruz. I'm in San Francisco right now, and I feel that way about Santa Cruz. It's like everybody actually lives there like they're living, they're surfing, they're walking, they're experiencing
Yeah.
life. And that's how I feel about being there. It's so nice. So how are you feeling? Like you have a lot going on. You just released
Yes.
a book. What are you up to right now?
It's been a lot of events here in the Hamptons, actually,
Oh,
which is,
cool.
really fancy, and it's all the things that you would want from a Hamptons event. So we did like a book brunch, book signing at the Surf Lodge, which is just so beautiful and so well curated. Like everything the Surf Lodge does is just very so well done, and that's really because of Jama, the owner. She's just such a, I don't think she doesn't look like a perfectionist, but everything she touches is perfect. So, and when I say she doesn't look like a perfectionist, because to me perfectionists look like emaciatedly thin and anxious people. She does not look like that. So she looks like this gorgeous Latina woman. So that, and then we did something with Donna Karen at Urban Zen, and Urban Zen is basically, it's just such a bridge of what I am creating in the world and have been creating, which is taking this like, I shop at Barney's, I'm okay with making massive amounts of money, traveling the world, like going to the Maldives. I'm fine with all of that. I do not believe that it takes away from my right and my privilege to seek and find enlightenment. And at the same time, I don't think enlightenment is something that's going to come easy, nor do I think shopping at Barney should, like both of those things either are difficult for you or they're not. Do you know what I mean?
That is
But
such
to
an exhale to hear you say that.
which part?
Just the fact that you can do both.
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
that's a really big topic right now. And it's something that comes up for me a lot too, as my business starts to expand and I see my bank account and I get to fly first class. Sometimes, granted,
Mm.
that's points because my husband's really good at that. But finding I'm also going to Nepal for a month in
Oh,
October to be in the Himalayas, and I think I struggle with that. I struggle with the wanting success and wanting luxury and also, praying every day and meditating every day and wondering if that's okay.
it most certainly is okay. And I think that wanting should be a dance. Like that's the
Mm.
thing that meditation and prayer offer, is this complete disconnection from the want, right? Like I want those things. I want even more things. Like I'm already living into the future of where I'm going. So for
Mm.
me, like a couple years ago, where I am now doing events at Surf Lodge and Urban Zen would have been like my wet dream. But of course, now that I'm here, I'm like, that's awesome. But when's Madison Square Garden happening? So it's like super
Yes.
like in flow towards the next and the next thing. And of course it's that way because we're expanding, and it's like sex, right? So if like you see someone that is really cute to you, like when you're 12 or whatever, you don't know them yet, right? So you still have to go talk to them. You still have to figure out, like, do they like the same bands you do? Like there's all that excitement and sex energy inside of it, and so it's designed perfectly that way. However, at the same time, you have to be completely in flow of what I call God's will, but I'm not religious, right? The universe has a will to it. And I say it, many times a day, I'll just say, thy will, not mine, be done. Like just yesterday, like someone didn't invite me to a party, and it was really weird. Like I was like standing there in the street with them, and they invited someone else right in front of me and didn't invite me. And I was like, what the fuck, But it was just like an awkward moment. But as they did it, I was like, obviously I'm not meant to be at that party. Like there's somewhere else I'm supposed to be in that moment. So I should really look into the quantum of that rather than focusing on why this random person doesn't think I'm important enough to be invited to their party, you know?
I love that. I mean, this is already so refreshing. I can tell I'm really going to enjoy this conversation. Everyone who comes on, it's always like exactly what I'm sort of dealing with in the moment. I love the way that the energy of the universe, how it's always that way. And I
Mm,
think that's big right now for me. I'm hiring, I'm scaling, and one of my coaches calls it these growth edges, where 2 years ago I couldn't have envisioned being where I am now. And so here we are, and I'm looking to what's next and
wow.
how we get there and how we stay rooted in the flow. And I think that's something that inspires me about you and about success in general, especially in our industry or in this world that we live in, is you're so clearly doing what you're supposed to be doing because it's working.
Totally.
like like I see people and I talk to people that are just coming up against a brick wall over and over again. I'm like, maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing, because yes, it's hard work and yes,
Yeah.
it's a hustle, but when you are in alignment, it does just happen. I mean, that's what I tend to find anyway. And I see that that's what's happening for you. And I think that might be a nice little segue into my first question, which is, you have a lot going on. You have a lot of what's. You have, you founded a center, a meditation center, an experience. You're a co-founder of this opportunity. You're speaking. You're at Lululemon events. You have a book, lots of different what's. And I think from looking at you, your how seems to be these meditation tools, but you're giving them or delivering them in all these different ways. But what is your why? What is sort of that thing that you come back to that helps you make a decision, whether it's I'm going to go speak at that event, or I'm going to write this book, or whichever mode of delivery, I guess, if you will, you're getting your gifts out into the world. What is the purpose for you?
Mm, mm. It's such a good question. There's a couple of whys, and they, yeah, I'll just go into them. So, like, well, the first why is that I believe that when I first started doing the work that I'm doing, there was nowhere in the space to meditate in a way that wasn't completely spiritually based. And obviously, I'm a spiritual teacher in a deep, long winded foundation, studied my entire life. So I have 40 plus years of study. My father was an awakened shaman. So I'm not just like some
Wow.
bimbo who came out of whatever, whatever, and was like, oh my God, I'm gonna like guide you through a meditation. That is not my story.
Yeah.
And so, like, I care deeply about consciousness, and I don't believe personally that most people have consciousness. There's the scene in The Matrix
Mm.
where, like, Keanu Reeves, like, realizes what it means to be awake in the Matrix, and he gets that he can just lift up his hand and bullets that are coming at him in full speed can be stopped midstream, and then he can make them just drop down. Do you remember that scene?
I do. We just
Yeah.
watched that recently.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
you know that scene. And so, like, to me, like, I have verified through living my life. I've lived, I've come from poverty to wealth. I've gone from heroin addiction to sobriety. I've gone from being totally single chronically to having the husband of my dreams. I've gone from losing my daughter to SIDS to having a healthy baby. I've gone
Mm.
everything, every duality you could possibly imagine. I am all of those things. And the only way that someone can live to tell those kinds of stories, the transmutation of consciousness, is to say, I get that all of this isn't really happening the way that it appears to be happening. I lifted my hand up. These bullets were coming right at me. I stopped them. They fell. I get the secret. I have the secret. And once you get that, you really want to share it with the world. The problem is that it doesn't matter how many fucking times you share that secret with the world, everyone is hardwired to forget on a daily basis. So when you wake up in the morning, your first go-to thoughts are not, today is going to be the day of abundance. Like all things that I've ever wanted are just going to fall into place. I'm just going to flow into life. And even if you do wake up like that because you've been writing affirmations every day and meditating and praying every day, and you're like in some kind of deep flow, even then, at some point during the day, some things externally are going to happen that are going to show you that you are wrong. And bitch, you better sit down, because nothing that you dream of is ever going to happen. And you're asleep, and you're a loser. No one likes you, and you're going to die. And you don't even know when it's going to happen. So what's the meaning of it all, right? So there's this purposelessness, and there's this feeling of emptiness that we all experience because we don't have evidence or proof of the fact that there really is an underlying meaning to all of this. So my first why is, I feel like it is my duty to share that love that I have with consciousness, and to bring consciousness in for people. And I do that through these epic meditation experiences, which I score with my own music.
Mm.
And my other why is, I don't believe that meditation should only be reached by letting go of your belongings, by moving to an ashram, by like sitting in zazen while some dude hits you with a stick to make sure you're paying attention. Like, that is not the way I want to do it, because I believe in aliveness. I believe in sexuality. I believe in, and not sexuality like I'm on some ashram with 10 husbands and like a couple wives. Like, I'm not getting weird. I'm super normal. Like, from the outside, my life looks super normal. And what interests me is actually, how can you actually become a president or become an emperor or become, a famous artist or whatever, like, life position that you would like to have, whoever's listening to this, like, what's your vision? I'm sure your vision is not sitting in lotus pose in a fucking cave somewhere reaching samadhi. So if your vision is like in the world, like, how can you do that but covertly be in a pursuit of your enlightenment and your awakening? That is my number one purpose. Like, it may look like I give a fuck about being on the cover of Vogue, and Lord knows I give a fuck, but it is my secondary aim. My primary aim is just to be in contact with this light.
It's so beautiful. I mean, there's so many things that you just said in that. I can't possibly agree more. I mean, I have this whole, it's like, it's funny because we all have a different way of saying it. And I say have coffee with resistance. And I literally, my mug says resistance on it every
Ooh.
day because I wake up with doubt every day. And we have to have those rituals. And I think as an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur for me has been the biggest, I think, spiritual process and also self-growth every single day. And I like that you say it's a reminder daily, because I can go to bed on such a high and such a flow, and whatever, no matter what, I wake up the next day, like even before my podcast, actually, that's probably the biggest one for me, is the unworthiness that creeps in, because the people that sit on the other end from me are really powerful people, really beautiful human beings, very successful, that I want to learn from, that inspire me. And I'm just like, what do I have? What value do I have? And I go into my ritual and I do my thing and I play my Hanuman Chalisa and whatever it is that gets you into that place of, it doesn't even matter. Like, this isn't even real. We're just having a conversation. And if you show up, it's because this conversation is meant to happen. And if you don't show up and you blow me off, it's not because I'm unworthy. It's because it wasn't meant to happen. But it's literally daily that I have to come back to that place. And it's so refreshing to hear someone like you, who from the outside looks like you're very far along in the spiritual process and consciousness and all of that, that it's still a daily reminder. Like, it's still coming back every single day to remember. And I think that's the biggest thing I wrote recently. I was at some seminar or event and they said, why do you come to events like this? And I just wrote, to remember.
Good
It's
job.
like so easily to it's so easy to forget, but it's also so easy to remember. And I think that's just the game that we're all playing, especially I find when you do what you love, like the ego and the unworthiness and the lack of value is even stronger for whatever reason. Like, do I deserve to be getting paid because I love doing this, and that whole conversation. And actually, that's my next question, is when I was watching your video, which I love, it's on your website. It's so well done. I've probably watched it 5 or 6 times in the last couple months. And you talk a lot about charging for your services. And although you love what you do, some days for me, I can't believe I get paid because I love it so much. But then if I'm not charging, that resentment, that imbalance, that unworthiness, all of that comes up. And I think, at what point was there sort of an aha moment? I have a lot of listeners who are at the beginning stages of, maybe they're still in their 9 to 5 and they're like dipping their toes in their actual calling and what they feel they're supposed to be doing. And it's really scary charging for that. And for me, I had a moment about a year ago where I'm like, done. This is my hourly. I cannot. And it's not that I don't want to help you, and it's not that I don't want to be of service to you, but it's understanding it's not me that's worth this price. It's the value you're going to get from this call. It's the experience you're going to have. And maybe you could just talk to that for a moment, that sort of switch that needs to happen when you're doing something you love and you decide to make a business out of it.
I love the question, and I really hear you. I think that it's a blend of things. Like, it was a journey. It wasn't like one day I was broke making $20 an hour as a caterer, And the next day I was like, and this will be, $5,000 a month to have me on retainer, right? Which
Right.
I think is pretty low. That's like my current rate. And I just am like, that seems really low to me. And not because like I'm saying it's not enough. It feels great. You pay me that, I give you these services. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm an artist. So as an artist who's creating something that's completely priceless and it's going to bring so much value to your life that your entire life from the ground up will be completely changed. To me, that's worth billions of dollars. So anything I charge outside of that or under that is a sale. Like to me, it's like if I'm telling someone this is going to be $5,000, I'm like, you're
That's a
getting a
steal.
deal. Yeah, you're getting a steal. Like, and I always think of artists. I think of Leonardo da Vinci, or I think of, I don't think of Picasso, but I just think of conscious artists who created things that have changed us from the inside out. And I think of the value that I've received from that. So to me, that's very helpful. When I first started my business, I didn't start it with a price at all. I could not do that. Not that I couldn't, and I'm not suggesting like go for it if you want to try it that way. What worked for me was starting with asking my clients to decide whatever they wanted to pay. Like I was like,
Wow.
I'm going to create this for you. Yeah. And this was about, now it's probably been 5 or 6 years. And I would say, this is what I'm going to create for you. And then you just pay me whatever you believe the value is for this thing. And I want the number to be something between what you can like fiscally afford given your life circumstances, and what you feel the true value is for a service like this, right? And people were totally taken aback. Now, mind you, I was like making cold calls to people and saying like, this is what I do.
Right.
I'm a spiritual teacher. I think back then I was calling it a meditation guide because I wasn't even completely clear on what was happening to me. And so I was like, I'm a meditation guide. I don't know if you know this, but this is what I do. I'd like to offer you a private session with me, and this is how I charge. And then people would, 7 out of 10 people would say yes. But then even out of those 7 out of 10 people would be like, oh, could you just give me an idea of what you mean? Like they wanted me to say, oh, it's like 100, or like it's like 150, or it's like 60, or whatever number. And so I was like, nope, I can't do that for you. Part of your work with me will begin with you figuring out what this number is and being inauthentic, giving with that number and feeling good about it. And I made everything from $60 an hour to $300 an hour. I had then a client who was giving me $300 an hour, and it felt so, back then that felt so abundant. Like I was like, oh my God, and he was like a celebrity. So I was like, this is just incredible. This is happening. And one guy gave me 80 cents once for a session. He came to a session with me. He did an hour, and then he left and he put change in my hand. And I literally felt like I was tripping on acid because I was like, wait, what is happening right now? Like this person is paying me 80 cents. But it was the most incredible feeling ever because I just knew that money was flowing onto me in sheer abundance. I wasn't worried. It felt very good to give him that session. And he left, and I just remember feeling very good in my heart and in what was happening in that moment. I never felt like, oh, who do you think you are? Like, whatever, you got to give me more. And after about a year of doing it this very like open-minded way, I was making about $3,000 a month then, which for me was like, it was a lot of money because I was working like not that many hours. It was just all, and I was doing what I loved. But of course, today I couldn't live on that, and like I can't even think. My monthly expenses are so insane.
Isn't it funny how that happens?
Yeah, you're just like, I knew that it was going to happen, but I was just like, oh, but I never wanted to become like that guy from Fight Club, where like my couch and my condo become my like God.
Right.
But the truth is that you have to both have your orchestra playing and know that at any minute, the tsunami could hit. Like you need to be free, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't tend to your garden. Like if I go to my garden, I pull out the weeds, I pour the water on, and I gaze at the roses. That doesn't mean that I don't know that they could die at any minute, And I think a lot of people get really scared about that. They're like, how do I create all this wealth? Because then it creates all this, like Bob Dylan said, when you got nothing to lose, right? And I just remember being like, oh, that's freedom, right? Like, and sometimes I still see homeless people in the street out in their cardboard box, and I'm like, that's a certain level of freedom. I get why they're choosing that. But to me, it's like, what's cooler, like being Jay-Z and feeling that level of freedom, or being some guy in a cardboard box and feeling that level of freedom? And to me, the answer is Jay-Z, because I don't know what Jay-Z feels, but for me, to be Jay-Z levels of successful on the ground level, but to have the level of freedom that the homeless guy has in the box, that's what I'm bringing to the world.
Wow. I think that's so powerful. And it's so, I think the money conversation is a really hard one. A lot of my clients really struggle with that. And that answer right now, I just want to like record it and plaster it everywhere. Because, and I think the big part too is how it changed for you, right? Like $3,000 was enough. And that was similar for me when I started my business. And now as I grow and expand, I do this women's group, which was very profound this year. I have a lot of masculine energy and I don't surround myself with a lot of women in business. So I joined a women's like entrepreneur group that's like all of the things that affect your business, your boundaries. I had none. Time management, terrible. All I do is work, all this kind of stuff. Relationships and your emotional relationships with money. And in one of the sessions, we all went around and we said the number that we wanted to make monthly in order to feel like good. And I went last. I guess I was like last on the little call. And my number, I was mortified to say, was literally 10 times everyone else in that call.
Ooh.
And I was like, whoa, like, because I'm trying to grow this thing and we're really helping people, like, just like you are, like, my purpose is to help people like you get your message out to the right people. I see myself as this conduit, this messenger, this reminder that you can fly, whatever it is, and get it out there and 10x your revenue, 10x what you're making, and also your audience and who you're affecting. And in order to do that, because she had us combine our personal expenses with the business expenses. And I've just hired 3 people. And so I want to pay them really well. And so just to have that moment and I felt good saying it. And I think I was scared to say it, but I think it actually inspired the other women on that call to dream a little bit bigger and to just not have that edge. I think like 3,000 enough, like some of these women on the call, it was like 5,000, 8,000, stuff like that. And to have mine be $80,000, I think, oh wait, are we still here?
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. You disappeared for a moment. Rory can edit that part out. But just to have that moment of realizing, wow, this is where my business is at and it's okay. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people are coming back to. It's okay. Now I'm in a group that I'm the lowest on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Which is where I want to be. I never want to be, the most successful one in the room. I'm in the wrong room. And so now I'm in a new spot where I'm learning and I'm seeing, and these women are so heart-centered. And so whatever it is, like, it doesn't even have to be a spiritual offering, to see that these people, this is really how they're supposed to be helping. And one of them is a financial coach, and seeing how she's of service and helping people buy their first homes or whatever it is, which is not something I'm interested in doing, but just this bigger sort of thing that's happening of charging for your value and loving it. Like, to me, loving what you do, it doesn't have to be spiritual work. It doesn't have to be being of service in the typical way. I give this talk called Marketing Your Dharma. And the woman I use as an example is someone who gives spray tans. Because when I had this experience with her for my wedding, it sort of rocked me and humbled me a bit, because her purpose is to make people feel beautiful. And she does this, her what is this business, and you come in and it's this sanctuary, and she's crafted these formulas. And when she does the spray tan, it's like she's actually channeling. It's like art to her.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. And she has a wait list a month out. She charges 3 times what the other competitors or whatever on Yelp were charging, but I picked her and I saw her for a reason. And I think, I don't know, I don't really know where I was going with that, but just hearing you talk about money in this way, being who you are and inspiring how you do, it's really, really refreshing to know that the business side is important. And it clearly has to be when you decide to do something like this and create business out of your passion, there's a business responsibility. Like
Yeah.
you can't, and I think that's the hardest part for me is people are like, oh, I don't do marketing. And I'm like, well, then you don't have a business. Like, you,
Right.
so, if you don't want to market yourself and you don't want to actually sell to the people who are looking for you and share your services, what are we doing here? And so hearing you say
Totally.
all of this is just extremely refreshing. And I think it will be really beneficial to my listeners to hear these words. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure.
Um, Speaking of success, you are obviously very confident. I'm gathering that, but it's sort of a deeper, it doesn't feel ego. It just feels like a soul confidence. I don't really know how else to describe it, but it's like you're very sure of who you are and why you're here. But you've also been featured on Vogue, Harper's magazine. How does it feel? For two questions. One, how does it feel to be recognized in such a big way, maybe on an ego and soul level? But also, how do you stay grounded in that? I've seen a lot of teachers, I've worked with a lot of people, big brands, big names, that I've really seen lose themselves in that experience, which breaks my heart. And I don't see that happening for you. And just what is that process, like you said, going from 5 years ago, making $3,000 a month cold calling to now? How does that feel?
It feels really good, but it feels really easy.
Mm,
I would say that, I've been very blessed in that I'm gifted with a lot of hits of humility. It's not like my life is designed in such a way where I just wake up and everything goes my way. You know what I mean? I already disclosed that I want to guide 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden with a performance, right? Like that's a vision of mine.
mm,
And so that's not happened yet, but the point is that, like, if that was already had happened, like if I was like I woke up and I just became that instantly, I don't think that I would have the level of being to withstand it. I do feel very much so like I'm moving into having the level of being that's capable of withstanding that much bliss and that
mm,
much joy and also that much agony, because I think what people don't understand is to be on stage at Madison Square Garden, guiding 20,000 people through a meditation experience while scoring it with your own music and an orchestra or whatever that's going to look like. That means connecting with how tragic life is. That means, like, Mozart, Amadeus didn't like wake up and was like, I'm just going to write the Requiem. Like, no, he was dying. He was dying of like the bubonic plague or something. So I just feel like people don't get how much sadness needs to be channeled and funneled through their body, and how much trauma and how much opening up to loss and pain and doubt and shame and feelings of disconnection. Like, just I mentioned earlier, this person who didn't invite me to the party but then like invited this other person in front of me, that was like in and of itself like pretty irrelevant as a moment goes, but it cut me so deeply because on some level I'm still that 7-year-old girl who was in the playground with those little girls, and those girls said to me, like, they circled me in a circle and they were like, I'm glad your mother died, right? When my mom died when I was 6. I don't know what those girls were thinking, and I don't blame them. I'm certain that they had like the best intentions, but like that's something that I went through, and I know that I'm not special in that. I'm certain that almost everyone listening to this, and probably you too, have just an equal, a horrific story of horrible things being said to you or done to you by other children. And that's just the icing on the cake, right? We're not, if you don't know my story, like everyone died, there was a lot of fires, like I'm still here somehow, no one knows how, right? But that was to me a more important pain point, because all of
mm,
us can
wow.
deal, yeah, because like all of us can deal with a parent dying, or like a house burning down, or like a car accident or something horrific. We can deal with that because there's no shame in that. There's something very like noble. Oh, I went through that. I was diagnosed with cancer, but then I made it through. Like there's a nobility to that. There's nothing fucking noble about being laughed at in the playground. There's nothing noble. It's not like you're sharing your little stories. And then I peed my pants in the second grade. And then I remember that time when like I told this boy I loved him, but then he was like, I don't love you back or whatever. Those things cripple us because they form these ideas inside of us that we are truly never going to fit in, that we're not good enough and we're going to be thrown out of our tribe and we're going to die alone in the cold somewhere because this is like old ancient shit. And so when I think about, I don't know how I got down this. Oh yeah, we're talking about how do I keep it real? It's like I get given humble pie all the time. I get rejected all the time. I fail upwards all the time. I get told no all the time. I've been telling people my vision and my dream for so many years. And back in the day when I first started, people were like, it was like 17 heads with like fire in their eyes. They were like, what are you even fucking talking about? Nobody's ever mixed meditation and music before and like in an art gallery or in a museum. No one's ever done this. Now are you in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
I'm being flown to San Francisco to do a meditation at the planetarium in a couple of weeks. So you should
Oh my
come.
God, I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually in town this month. I'm never here. That's so exciting.
It's in September.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can see Madison Square Garden. Like I already see it. Like I want to be there, you know,
You do.
I want to be there in that crowd, you know, when you're giving that meditation with the music, like I can see it. It's just, and I think everything that you said is just, it's so profound too, because the thing that you touched on about being the girl on the playground, and calling that like a horrific experience is something that I struggle with a lot because I am very blessed, or privileged or whatever you want to call, but my parents are still here. They're still together. I had my college degree paid for. I, didn't experience a crazy amount of trauma in my life, but then doing these childhood sort of visualizations I've done, I like get to these moments when I was a little kid, just like you said, that have like profoundly traumatized me. And I always say, well, I didn't really have any traumatic experiences. And I just sort of blow it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really guilty about that. I carry an extreme guilt, being who I am and having the life that I've had, and a pressure to not fail because look what I have and look what I've had. Like I cannot fail. And it's sort of like the opposite end. And I've dealt with this a lot. And I talk to people who have gone through and I've been there for extreme moments of grief and the whole thing. But I myself have not sat in that seat of hard loss and hard grief. And I do believe that empathy can only get you so far. And to not have experienced that, it's sort of like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it's this constant fear I have, this guilt I have. It's funny, but then to hear you say that experience as a child was equally, if not more profound in how you grew up and how you became and the unworthiness and the lack of value, it sort of gives me like some permission in a way to have the anxieties I have. I think that's one of my biggest things I feel so guilty about is who am I to have these horrible fears and these crazy anxieties, these paralyzing moments of doubt and unworthiness. Like I shouldn't have these. But then we have had these moments, and I've had a moment just like that. I've had moments where teachers in the first grade have called me out and told me to stop singing, and I just didn't sing ever again. Big experiences like that, but that seem so small compared to experiences like the ones that you've had. So it's really beautiful to hear you say that and to allow myself to kind of go there and understand that my experiences are worthy, I guess, in a funny way. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, that was a really good answer. I could keep going for a long time on that, but I really want to jump into the book. Take a little detour because that's what's sort of on your plate right now, I'm guessing, is this book has come to life. I love that it's 44 ways. That's my lucky number. So 44 is everywhere for me. And I just want to talk about that process of, this is a huge way of sharing your gifts is through a book. I think books are just this piece of art that really stay for a long time after we're gone, and a way to affect a lot of people who may not know who you are yet. This could be how they're introduced to you, is by picking up your book. A lot of books come to me that way, and people. So let's talk about it. What's the purpose of the book? Who's it for? What's your hope for people when they read it?
I
All
love
the
it.
things.
Well, the book is, it's really incredible stuff, right? Because I'm this student or teacher, whatever you want to call it, of this thing called Fourth Way. And Fourth Way is basically like a philosophical system that allows you to understand the universe, your place in it, and awakening and enlightenment. And it's very heady stuff. And if you've ever read a book on it, which
I was just
most
going to
people
say, it
haven't,
sounds super light.
yeah, it's like really heavy. And like the books that are written on it currently are like either indiscernible or like hard to understand. And so I'm lucky. My father was an awakened teacher who taught me this work. I continued on in his legacy, studying it after he died. And, something happened to me when I became, a servant of this work. And again, I'm not like religious and I'm not a zealot. It really is a glass through which to see things, right? And I think I'm doing for Fourth Way what Marianne Williamson did for A Course in Miracles back when that came out. It's just bringing it to people in this completely new way. So I've repackaged it,
Cool.
and I curse and I tell stories from my actual life. And so it's easy to understand, but the wisdom inside of it isn't easy to understand. It's more like an experiment on yourself. So you're supposed to take this work and go try it on for yourself and then see how it affects you. Because who gives a shit that I've found bliss, or that I'm rich, or that I'm happy, or that that all my pain has been transmuted into music and all these extraordinary life experiences. Only you matter. This book is for you. Like, this book is not it's not for me anymore. It was for me when I was doing the work inside of it, and then now I continue to do other work, and I'll write more books. So I guess vision wise, my vision is that it becomes a New York Times bestseller. But the other day I was talking about that, and I was like, okay, so to become a New York Times bestseller, you have to sell 8,000 books in 1 week. So you can't sell 8,000 books. Like, obviously I've sold 8,000 books, but like, you can't sell 8,000 books over a period of time. You sell it within Monday to Monday, like in a week, right? And so I was like, if I sold 7,700 books every week for the rest of my life and never became a New York Times bestseller, I would not give a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the brand, it's not the stamp. That sounds great. But I mean, to me, it's about affecting change. It's about reaching hearts and lives and changing those lives. When I was a little girl reading Ram Dass or reading Alan Watts, that shit helped me, and I didn't get to walk away from an Alan Watts cassette tape and be like, I have all my shit figured out. I didn't have that. I got to walk away and be like, I think he knows something that I don't. I think he knows something that I don't. And now I know that thing that not you, but that someone doesn't. And then I get to share that with them. And it's really like love making. It's about connecting with someone in a way where they're like, I feel something about this person, that they are not full of shit, and I can trust them. And I can go in this route. I can try these things out, and then give yourself permission to try these things.
I love that. And just hearing you talk about it, I mean, not that I'm, qualified, but I just feel like you're the kind of person that should be teaching this stuff. And just because, I don't know why this is coming up for me, but just because you found it, not you, but just because someone found that thing doesn't mean they're meant to be teaching it. And for whatever, I don't know why that just came out of me, but I'm sitting here like surrounded in my office, my shrine doubles as my office, and thinking like I've really truly in the last couple of years found that thing that we're talking about. But I feel very private about it, and that's sort of where I'm at, is like torn between wanting to scream it from the rooftops, like, how you don't know this thing, and like keeping it very private. And I'm just so grateful for people like you, because you have the experience, you have the life. I mean, I found Ram Dass when I was 20, so it's just, and not to compare or say one person is more willing or equipped to be sharing this, but I think for me, it's like, there's someone out there sharing it. Like, I don't have to. I can experience it and I can keep growing, because that's not where I'm at in my path, is to be really sharing it and screaming it from the rooftops. And a lot of my clients, I travel and stay with a lot of our clients. We shoot content and spend time with them. And their biggest takeaway is always how spiritual I am. Because I think it's come out more on the podcast, but it's private. It's very private, because I'm like still afraid it might go away. I'm still afraid of saying the wrong thing or sharing the wrong thing or it not being in integrity or whatever it is. And just hearing the way you talk about it, it's just like, oh, okay, I can keep focusing on marketing because there's somebody out there that's truly meant to be sharing this work. And I'm just so grateful you exist. I can't wait to read the book. I'm sorry I haven't read it yet. When I saw you on here, I was like, oh shit, I really wanted to read it first, but timing is everything. And we were meant to talk today, and I can't wait to read it.
You're going to have to as soon as we hang up, you're going to be like,
I know. That's how I feel right now. I'm like, I want to be in these meditations. I want to read this book. I want to be at Madison Square Garden. Yeah, it's just been really beautiful talking to you. So I think that I had a final question, but I feel like you sort of answered it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share in that, is having gone through what you've gone through and experienced what you've experienced and come out so, beautifully tragic, and I don't know, it's just, your story is amazing. And what is your advice for I'm sure, hopefully you're a human and you still have hard days where it's heavy, and whether it's an anxiety from a childhood trauma or something so big that sort of is paralyzing, do you have sort of a routine or a ritual, mantra or meditation? I don't know what, that can snap you back in. Do you sit with it? Do you let the days consume you? I don't know. Do you have any more advice for our listeners where the unworthiness and the lack of value and the doubt and the sadness is strong?
Yeah, I turn back to my go-tos, in terms of like books that I know remind me of what's true, films that I know remind me of what's true. I'm not saying that I couldn't have a bad day, but generally my days are not bad. Today, it's more like I have processing days where I'll get hit with something where I'm emotional about something that happened when I was young. Again, like these things I believe are connected. And then in that moment, there's a resistance, like you were talking about, to processing it. So there will be an old go-to of like, well, maybe I should eat some pizza, or maybe I should like go buffer this somehow. I don't buffer it today. I really try to just be there with the thing that's happening and ask from it, how can I make this make me more wealthy? And I don't mean financially, although there's always more money to be harvested from all of these pain points, because the pain points are actually where our money is hidden.
Wow.
Right? So I just go in and I take my shirt off, not like literally, but I just I run naked towards my pain. And I say to it, I used to say, get me out of this, or I would pray to the universe to take it away or to lessen it. And now I'm just like, okay, friction, like I feel it almost like a chisel carving me into the David. And I'm so excited to see what the universe or God is trying to make out of me, because I know I've got even more gorgeousness going on here that I have been unwilling to see. And if I'm unwilling to see it, I'm certainly not willing to show it to you, right? And the gorgeousness, again, coming back to a point earlier, is also very ugly. Like, what parts of my ugliness am I not willing to share? And not to the point where, like, you see a lot of these Instagram things going on now where everyone's getting all vulnerably sharing like their awkward stuff. And I know that's trending and I think that's great. But I think for me, it's a blend. It's like, how can I do both? I want to show you my disgustingness, that I'm going to die, that I have dirty underwear at the end of a day, like all the things. But I also want to show you how amazing I am. It's that Jay-Z, but feeling like the humility of a homeless man in the box, freedom. That kind of parallel that I've been playing with. And I go to my go-tos. Yeah. So like if you dig my message, you just get my audiobook and like you listen to it on a bad day, right? If you don't dig me, go get Marianne Williamson or Eckhart Tolle or Ram Dass or whoever like when they speak, you're like, oh, fuck, man, that's true. If you can hear somebody and their truth makes you feel more alive, like go back to that person on those days. And it will pass, everything passes. So I think more so stop treating it like it's something you need to get to the other side of so you can enjoy your frappuccino. Like be with the pain, be with the wholeness of you.
There's the soundbite I'm going to use to share this podcast. That was amazing. Thank you. No, it's really amazing talking to you. I feel really, really grateful that the universe has allowed us to speak this morning, because I feel like I'm on that path. I feel like I'm there, and you're a really beautiful reminder. And that what you just said about, I think for me, sometimes the resistance to using my tools is pretty strong. So like my tools are right in front of me. I can literally touch them. I can light that incense that I know is going to change my attitude. I know which song is going to do it for me. I know exactly which meditation, and the resistance to just playing it. My husband will be like, I think we need our Muji meditation. Like when I'm starting to get like really crazy, and I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't want to listen to it. And he'll just like start playing it. He's a lot more earthy than I am, to say the least. So thank you for joining me. And the last bit I like to end with is, this is the Authentic Audience podcast, and just a brief share on an inauthentic moment that has happened in your business, and how maybe that turned into something that's authentic or went to shit, but something that didn't feel right in your core.
So I would say, like, I don't do anything that doesn't feel right anymore. That is gone from that's not even under the umbrella of possibility. But I will say that as a businesswoman, 50% of what I do is inauthentic. That's not saying that it's under the umbrella of, did I hear a red flag or a voice be like, don't do that? I won't do anything. I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But because life is make-believe, I have to go into worlds that I don't agree with. Like, you know what I mean? Like I do things that I know somehow like are supporting governments that I'm not in agreement with. I pollute. I fucking drink out of plastic cups. Sometimes I end up with a plastic straw, although I'm still not clear as to how the plastic straw is better or worse than the plastic cup that I just drank the thing out of. The point is that there's so much inauthenticity in being alive that I just have to bear with not beating myself up at night about it. That's the part that I'm bearing with, which is like, if I can sleep at night knowing that 50% of me is a disgusting, homicidal, like I kill, what do you call it? When you breathe, you're like killing like molecules, I litter, I drive in a car that's polluting, blah, blah, blah. And I do business with people who I'm just like, yeah, like you're special. You know what I mean? Like everything. But you have to have the Shakespearean way about you where it's like, I am not Biet anyway. I'm just playing her on TV. Would I be upset if a character in a movie, if Forrest Gump littered? No, because that's not even real. That's like a movie about life, right? So I just have to treat it that way and remember that my purpose on this planet is beyond my understanding. And if I can keep connecting with that place, which can only be done through leaving the mind, then I'll be okay. But the other 50%, it's like, I don't know, it's going to be 50% inauthentic. That's just
I love that answer. I think that's my favorite answer. I ask this question every week. So I think that was probably my favorite answer I've ever heard. But to me, that was the most authentic answer I've ever heard. Like in your being human and acknowledging your inauthenticities is the most authentic thing we can do, I think. Yeah. And there's an awareness about you that you have about who you are in this world and why it matters and why it doesn't matter at all. And it's just, you live such a balance. What's your sign, if you don't mind me asking?
According to astrology, I'm Aries.
It's just, there's this crazy like balance or like extreme like juxtaposition that is you, and it's so refreshing. It's like,
Oh, thank you.
I've loved this conversation. I've loved meeting you. For everyone listening, this was actually my first time meeting Biet, and I was very nervous because I've had somewhat of a relationship or connection to everyone I've interviewed thus far, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm really grateful to start having these bigger opportunities where I can connect and meet people for the first time on this show, because it's actually my favorite thing I do. I do a lot of shit in my days, and this is my favorite thing, is just to drop in for an hour and talk about what we love and how to be better and how to keep growing. So thank you so much for being here, for giving me your time and energy. I definitely value it. And to find more, your website is bietsimkin.com, BIET Simkin, SIMKIN.com. The book is, where can we find the book?
It's on all the things, Amazon,
Everywhere.
Barnes and Noble, your local bookstore. It's Simon and Schuster, so it's easy to find. It's called Don't Just Sit There.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then also I'm at Guided by Biet on Instagram, which is a good way to connect.
Guided by Biet. I'll put all of that in the show notes.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm sort of looking forward to following your journey. I feel very invested now after this conversation in that Madison Square Garden scene. And even if it doesn't happen, the trusting that that's what's supposed to happen is just quite beautiful. So thank you for being here.
It's going to happen, or better.
I mean, I can like see it. As soon as you said it, I was like there.
It's happening. One way or another, it's going to fucking happen.
Like, I really fucking see you, and I'm excited to know you. So, and to everybody listening, as always, thank you for being here. And until next time, keep growing.